On 1 January 1945, Asch Airfield Advanced Landing Ground Y-29 in Belgium supported Allied air operations during the Ardennes fighting. Built in November 1944 by the 9th Engineer Command, with a 5,000-foot sod, packed earth runway and dispersed hardstands, the field hosted a detachment of the 352nd Fighter Group's 487th Fighter Squadron. The 352nd Fighter Group was commanded by Cole James D. Maiden, and the Y-29 detachment was led on the line by Lieutenant Cole John C. Meyer. Nearby, the 366th Fighter Group with P-47 Thunderbolts operated in the same sector. At first, light formations from Jagdgeschwader, 11 part of Operation Bodenplatte, approached at treetop height to strafe parked aircraft and disrupt the field. The German plan relied on surprise, low-level strafers with top cover elements intended to overwhelm the airfield before American fighters could respond. At Y-29, however, the 487th FS had Mustangs pre-flighted and positioned for rapid scramble. As the first Fugluff 190s and Bf 109s flashed over the boundary, Meyer ordered an immediate takeoff under fire. At the same time, P-47s from the 366th FG were already operating in the vicinity and turned in to engage. The attack that aimed to catch idle targets instead met a coordinated response. Mustangs lifted through the strafing axis and engaged at low altitude, while Thunderbolts dove in from above. Lieutenant Cole Meyer wheels just up rolled toward an FW 190 and shot it down almost immediately after takeoff, setting the tone for the defense. Dispersed parking and the field's layout reduced the effect of the initial passes, and ground crews kept operations moving despite the incoming fire. As the fight tightened over the airfield, the 487th FS maintained cohesion and pressed close-range attacks that broke the German runs. The 366th FG's intervention further scattered the top cover and complicated any repeat strafing. Although some American aircraft were damaged, the 352nd's Mustangs at Y-29 were not lost, and the runway remained operational. German losses in the attacking force were heavy, and claims by the 487th FS were substantial, giving rise to the legend of Y-29. The outcome turned on preparation and coordination rather than chance. Rapid scramble procedures, disciplined tactics from the 487th FS, and timely support from the 366th FG converted an ambush into a defensive victory. Y-29 held, and the morning raid failed to achieve its goal of crippling the airfield, underscoring how readiness and layered response could beat a low-level surprise attack. The sky above Asch Airfield Advanced Landing Ground Y-29 churned with violence on the first day of January 1945. Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer, leading the 487th Fighter Squadron detachment of the 352nd Fighter Group, had lifted off under fire, his P-51D Mustang climbing through the chaos of Jagdgeschwader. 11's strafing runs. The German raiders, flying few 190s and Bf 109s, sought to shred parked aircraft and halt operations. Their low-altitude passes aimed to exploit surprise, but Meyer's rapid scramble disrupted their rhythm. Overhead, the 366th Fighter Group's P-47D Thunderbolts, already airborne, dove into the fray, their 850 caliber guns roaring. Meyer's Mustang engaged an FDU 190 almost immediately after takeoff, its fire tearing through the German's wing. The 487th Fighter Squadron, following his lead, launched in pairs as they climbed to meet the raiders. The 366th's pilots struck the German top cover and forced Bf 109s into defensive turns. The raiders' plan, low-level strafing covered by a swift withdrawal, crumbled as the Americans fought on two axes, Mustangs rising from the runway and Thunderbolts pressing from above. The Thunderbolts' high-speed diving attacks scattered the German formations. With 850 caliber guns and a heavy ammunition load of roughly 3,400 rounds in total, they added decisive weight to the defense. Meyer's detachment, now airborne, maintained tight formations, their P-51Ds weaving through low cloud to pursue the strafers. The Germans, caught in a crossfire, lost cohesion. Their low-level tactics also exposed them to ground-based anti-aircraft fire. Y-29's runway, a sod and packed earth surface built by the 9th Engineer Command, including the 852nd and 846th Engineer Aviation Battalions, remained operational despite damage. No P-51 losses were recorded at Y-29. Several American aircraft sustained damage and the runway remained in use. The airfield's dispersed layout with aircraft spread across revetments limited the raiders' impact. The 487th Fighter Squadron's rapid response saw them claim 23 enemy aircraft destroyed. Meyer's leadership, marked by his immediate engagement, set a relentless pace. His Distinguished Service Cross reflected the day's decisiveness. The 366th pilots, leveraging their position, disrupted the German top cover and downed Bf-109s attempting to shield the strafers. The raiders, now fragmented, faced mounting losses. Jagdgeschwader 11 suffered heavily in the Asch sector. American coordination, ground crews preflighting aircraft, and pilots scrambling under fire turned Y-29 into a fortress. The Germans' surprise attack, meant to paralyze Allied air power, met a defense too swift to overcome. The 352nd Mustangs and the 366th Thunderbolts combined readiness with timing to blunt the ambush within minutes. Y-29 stood as a testament to tactical discipline and coordination, its defenders turning the tide and ensuring the field continued to support the Ardennes campaign. The legend of Y-29 grew from this moment, a story of resilience etched into unit lore. The air battle over Asch Airfield, advanced landing ground Y-29 on the first day of January 1945, reached its zenith as the German raid faltered. Jagdgeschwader 11's F-190s and Bf-109s, initially slicing through the dawn at very low level, faced relentless counterattacks from the 352nd Fighter Group's P-51D, Mustangs and the 366th Fighter Group's P-47D Thunderbolts. Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer, leading the 487th Fighter Squadron's detachment, had transformed the runway into a launch pad under fire, his pilots engaging raiders at close range. Thunderbolts, already airborne in the sector, dove into the fight, their 850 caliber guns adding decisive weight. The German plan, part of Operation Bodenplatte's broader strike, hinged on surprise and precision to cripple Y-29's aircraft and runway. Low-altitude strafing runs designed to catch planes in takeoff queues met instead a swarm of Mustangs climbing into their paths. Meyer fired almost immediately after takeoff and downed an attacker, setting the tone. The 366th pilots struck the German top cover, disrupting the raiders' cohesion. The raiders' momentum collapsed as losses mounted. The 352nd pilots, trained for rapid scrambles, maintained tight formations, their P-51Ds weaving through tracer fire to engage the strafers. The Thunderbolts, heavier and armed with 850 caliber guns and a total ammunition load of roughly 3,400 rounds, dove repeatedly. Y-29's runway, a sod and packed earth surface built by the 9th Engineer Command, including the 852nd and 846th Engineer Aviation Battalions, remained operational, despite damage. No P-51 losses were recorded at Y-29. Several American aircraft sustained damage and dispersed parking limited the raiders' impact. Meyer's leadership, decisive and unyielding, anchored the defense. His immediate takeoff under fire, followed by a direct engagement, earned him the Distinguished Service Cross and set a standard for his pilots. The 487th Fighter Squadron reported claims of 23 enemy aircraft destroyed. The 366th's intervention further broke up the top cover, and the attacking force of Jagdgeschwader 11 suffered heavy losses in the Asch sector. American coordination ground crews, pre-flighting aircraft and pilots scrambling under fire, reinforced by fighters already on station, turned a planned ambush into a rout. The German raid, meant to paralyze Allied air power, instead exposed the attackers' vulnerabilities. Through preparation and coordination, Y-29's defenders preserved the field's ability to support the Ardennes fight, and the morning's clash entered unit lore as the legend of Y-29. The skies over Asch Airfield Advanced Landing Ground Y-29 cleared on the first day of January 1945 as the German raid collapsed. The 352nd Fighter Group's P-51D Mustangs, led on the line by Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer of the 487th Fighter Squadron detachment, scrambled under fire and engaged FIV 190s and BF 109s at close range. The 366th Fighter Group's P-47D Thunderbolts, already airborne in the sector, dove into the fight with 850 caliber guns breaking up the German top cover. The 487th Fighter Squadron claimed 23 enemy aircraft destroyed, and the unit received a Distinguished Unit Citation, as well as the French Croix de Guerre with Palm. Y-29's sod and packed earth runway remained operational despite damage anchoring Allied air power in the Ardennes. The German raiders, intending to cripple the field by surprise, met a coordinated defense. Mustangs launched amid strafing runs and drove straight into the attack. Thunderbolts pressed from above and scattered the screen meant to protect the low-level fighters. Dispersed parking and practiced scramble procedures limited the effect of the opening passes. The airfield's layout, built under the 9th Engineer Command by the 852nd and 846th Engineer Aviation Battalions, prevented losses from massed aircraft on the ground. Momentum shifted quickly. The 352nd's pilots held tight formations and cut across the strafers' paths, while the 366th continued to hammer the cover. No P-51 losses were recorded at Y-29, though several American aircraft were damaged and the runway stayed in use. German losses were heavy, and key leaders were killed during the operation. What was planned as a decisive blow became a costly failure. Meyer's immediate takeoff under fire and near-instant engagement set the tone and earned him the Distinguished Service Cross. The combined readiness of pre-flighted Mustangs and fighters already on station turned a surprise raid into a defensive victory. Y-29 stood as proof that preparation, dispersal, and coordinated action could beat a low-level ambush, and the morning's clash entered unit lore as the legend of Y-29. At first light on the first day of January 1945, the attack on Asch Airfield Advanced Landing Ground Y-29 reached beyond a routine dawn sweep. Jagdgeschwader 11 came in at very low level to break the field, betting on surprise to catch fighters parked and crews unready. What they met instead was a layered defense Mustangs of the 352nd Fighter Group lifting into the strafing axis, while Thunderbolts of the 366th Fighter Group, already airborne in the sector, turned down to strike the cover. It was the kind of coordination that turned a runway into a battlefield on American terms. On the line, Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer led the 487th Fighter Squadron detachment. He rolled and lifted under fire, then fired almost immediately after takeoff, downing an attacker and setting a tempo every pilot could follow. The 487th scrambled in disciplined elements, crossing the raiders' paths instead of yielding the strip. Above, Thunderbolts pressed in with 850 caliber guns and a heavy total ammunition load of roughly 3,400 rounds, breaking up the German top cover and denying the strafers the freedom to reset for repeat. 2 runs. The airfield itself had been prepared for days like this. Built under the 9th Engineer Command by the 852nd and 846th Engineer Aviation Battalions, Y-29 used a sod and packed earth runway and dispersed hardstands that kept aircraft from sitting in neat rows. When the first passes tore across the boundary, that dispersal and a practiced scramble kept operations moving. No P-51 losses were recorded at Y-29, though several American aircraft were damaged and the strip remained in use while the fight raged overhead. Close-range combat favored the side that held its formation and its nerve. Mustang sections drove straight at the strafers, forcing head-on decisions that broke the rhythm of low-level runs. Thunderbolts punished any attempt to hold altitude as cover, shouldering into the fight from above and scattering German elements before they could mass. Ground fire added to the pressure at the margins, but it was the timing between the scramble from below and the dives from above that decided the air over the field. Claims rose quickly. The 487th Fighter Squadron reported claims of 23 enemy aircraft destroyed. The unit was awarded a Distinguished Unit Citation for the day's action, and it also received the French Croix de Guerre with Palm. Meyer's immediate takeoff and near-instant engagement earned him the Distinguished Service Cross and fixed the narrative of the morning, a leader who launched under fire and a squadron that followed in step. For Jagdgeschwader 11, the result was a hard loss at the edge of a larger operation. Operation Bodenplatte sent fighter wings across the Low Countries to smash Allied forward fields in one blow. At Y-29, the concept met a defense built on preparation and drilled response. The attackers failed to destroy aircraft on the ground or close the runway. German losses in the Asch sector were heavy, and the strength sacrificed there could not be recovered in the months remaining. What emerged by midday was not just a saved runway, but a model. Pre-flighted fighters on the line aircraft, already on station above dispersal, that denied massed targets and crews trained to move under fire, formed a playbook for forward airfields in winter war. The Mustangs of the 352nd and the Thunderbolts of the 366th did not fight two separate battles. They fought one on two axes with one purpose. The morning's clash entered unit lore as the legend of Y-29, a proof that coordination can beat surprise when the first shots are already in the air. Y-29 continued to support the Ardennes fight after the raid, its runway still serviceable, its aircraft still launching. The lesson was plain when an airfield's defense binds scramble procedures, airborne cover, and engineered dispersal into a single response. Even a well-timed low-level ambush can be turned in minutes. That is why the defense of Asch Airfield resonated beyond its packed Earth surface. It showed how American coordination stunned a determined raider and kept the war's momentum moving forward. At first light on the first day of January 1945, Asch Airfield Advanced Landing Ground Y-29 in Belgium faced the kind of blow Operation Bodenplatte was designed to deliver. The Luftwaffe's plan was simple and ruthless. Low-level fighters would rip across forward strips, smash aircraft on the ground, and choke Allied air power at its source. Y-29 was not a soft target. Built in November 1944 under the 9th Engineer Command, by the 852nd and 846th Engineer Aviation Battalions, it used a sod and packed earth runway with dispersed hard stands that denied the enemy neat lines of parked aircraft. The American fighter cover at Y-29 combined readiness on the ground with patrols already in the air. The 352nd Fighter Group's detachment on the line was the 487th Fighter Squadron, led in the cockpit by Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer. The group itself was commanded by Colonel James D. Maiden. Nearby, the 366 Fighter Group's Thunderbolts worked the same sector. Ground crews kept aircraft pre-flighted, and crews close a routine born of winter war that would prove decisive when the first shapes flashed over the boundary at very low level. Jagdgeschwader 11's strike arrived in classic fashion. Focke-Wulf 190 fighters for the strafing runs, and Messerschmitt 109 elements to act as top cover. The opening passes aimed to catch Mustangs in takeoff queues and to scatter maintenance parties before any coordinated response could form. Instead, Lieutenant Colonel Meyer rolled, lifted under fire, and fired almost immediately after takeoff to down an attacker, an act that set the tone and told every pilot on the line that the fight had already begun. From that moment, the defense ran on two axes that locked together. Mustangs clawed off the strip into the Straffer's path, forcing head-on decisions at low level and breaking the rhythm of repeat runs. Above, Thunderbolts turned down into the cover their 850 caliber guns and heavy total ammunition load, adding authority to every diving pass. The P-51D's 650 caliber guns gave each section enough punch to finish damaged raiders at close range. Formation discipline mattered as much as firepower. Elements crossed, covered and re-attacked without surrendering the space over the runway. Engineering and procedure kept the field alive while the dogfight raged. Dispersed parking prevented the loss of massed aircraft to a single sweep. Taxiways and hardstands spread the risk. Practiced scramble drills kept departures moving, even as tracers stitched the edge of the strip. No P-51 of the 352nd Fighter Group was lost at Y-29, though several American aircraft were damaged, and the runway remained in use throughout the engagement. Anti-aircraft fire added to the pressure on the attackers, but it was the timing between the scramble from below and the dives from above that broke the raid's shape. Claims rose in the heat of the fight. The 487th Fighter Squadron reported claims of 23 enemy aircraft destroyed. Losses in Jagdgeschwader 11's attacking force were heavy, and the strength sacrificed over Asch could not be made good in the short winter left to the Luftwaffe. The attackers failed to close the runway, or to destroy aircraft on the ground in numbers that would alter operations, the essential goals of Bodenplatte at every forward strip. Recognition followed quickly. Lieutenant Colonel Meyer received the Distinguished Service Cross for his immediate takeoff under fire and near-instant engagement. The 487th Fighter Squadron was awarded a Distinguished Unit Citation for its conduct at Y-29, and the group's service on this date was also marked by the French Croix de Guerre with Palm. Among pilots and ground crews, the story hardened into a name, the Legend of Y-29, a shorthand for a morning when training, leadership and layout turned a runway into a defended position. The meaning of Y-29 reached beyond a single field. Operation Bodenplatte struck many airstrips across the Low Countries, but at Asch the system worked. Pre-flighted fighters on the line, fighters already on station above engineers' dispersal on the ground, and air crews drilled to move under. That coordination stunned the raiders and beat the ambush in minutes. Y-29 stayed in the fight, launching and recovering aircraft to support 9th Air Force operations in the Ardennes, and it stood thereafter as a model of how American airfields could survive and win under a surprise. Low-level attack. The defense of Asch Airfield Advanced Landing Ground, Y-29, on the first day of January 1945, sent shockwaves through the Ardennes air campaign. The 352nd Fighter Group's detachment on the line, led by Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer of the 487th Fighter Squadron, scrambled under the guns of Jagdgeschwader 11's, Fevelu 190s, and BF 109s, claiming 23 enemy aircraft in a coordinated counterattack. The 366th Fighter Group's P-47D Thunderbolts, diving from altitude with 850 caliber guns, shattered the German top cover, ensuring Y-29's survival as a vital hub. The airfield, built by the 852nd and 846th Engineer Aviation Battalions under the 9th Engineer Command, remained operational despite damage anchoring Allied air power during the Battle of Promens. The Bulge. This triumph, rooted in preparation and coordination, redefined forward airfield defense, its lessons etched into unit practice. Jagdgeschwader 11's raid, a spearhead of Operation Bodenplatte, aimed to cripple Allied airfields through very low-altitude strafing. Expecting grounded aircraft and idle runways, the Germans met instead, Mustangs launching under fire and Thunderbolts plunging from above. The 487th Fighter Squadron's rapid scramble, paired with the 366th Airborne Patrol, turned surprise into confusion for the raiders. German pilots felt the pressure of coordinated pursuit. Oberstleutnant Guenther Specht was killed during the operation, a loss emblematic of the day's cost to experienced leadership. 29's operational resilience owed much to foresight. Dispersed revetments and a sod and packed earth runway denied massed targets and kept the strip usable while the fight raged. Ground crews worked rapidly, and operations continued under fire. Thunderbolts brought weight and endurance with 850 caliber guns and a heavy total ammunition load. Mustangs pressed from the runway into the strafers' paths. Ground-based anti-aircraft fire compounded the attackers' problems, but it was the timing between the scramble from below and the dives from above that broke the raid's rhythm. The 487th Fighter Squadron's credited victories, recognized with a Distinguished Unit Citation, and the French Croix de Guerre with Palm, marked Y-29's defense as a model of tactical execution. Meyer's leadership, launching under fire and engaging almost immediately, earned him the Distinguished Service Cross and set a standard for his pilots. The 366th's intervention at the right moment disrupted the German cover and forced the attackers into a fight they could not control. The airfield's survival preserved its role as a forward base for the 9th Air Force, supporting ground troops through January's bitter conditions. Operation Bodenplatte's broader failure across the Low Countries revealed the German air arm's desperation. The Jagdwaffe struck multiple airfields, inflicting damage, but losing irreplaceable aircraft and veteran pilots in a single day. Y-29s stand a microcosm of that collapse, highlighted the Allied edge, rapid response, coordinated defense, and resilient infrastructure. The 352nd's pilots, trained for scrambles under pressure, held formation discipline under fire, while the 366th's Thunderbolts ensured no German top cover could regroup. The strategic ripple effects of Y-29's defense reshaped the Ardennes air war. Claims did not align perfectly with confirmed wrecks, as in any frenetic battle, but the operational result at Asch was clear. The runway remained open, aircraft on the ground were not destroyed in decisive numbers, and no P-51 of the 352nd was lost at Y-29, though several American aircraft were damaged. Meyer's audacity, paired with the 366th's timely intervention, showed how preparation and teamwork could blunt a surprise attack. The legend of Y-29 endured a testament to engineering courage and coordination, keeping a forward airfield in the fight.